Hi, good afternoon. Alima, you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Alima.
Excellent. So today we want to get into a topic that I think many look at and wonder a few questions. We'll try to get to some of them today. But in this section, Shine Like a Star, we want to look at the journey to the C-suite. And we have about 4 questions. And the first one has to do with career break. So on our journey to mid, senior, and in your case, Dipali, an executive role, there is many times a need for a break. In my case, I had a break after 8 years in my career. That was necessary to have my son. So the first was in Canada and then India, 21 months out of my career. But one of the things I felt out of that was that I was a lot slower coming back from that break. And I felt unprepared. And I joined with a lot of younger teammates. In fact, I managed a team with younger people, and I literally felt slower. I think everyone has different experiences from breaks, and I'd love to hear your experience because I know it's slightly different from how I took mine, focusing on kids mainly. But can you tell us a little bit about yours?
Yeah. So, Alima, I think first let me put it into context. I've worked for 28 years now. I currently work with IBM. I'm the chief marketing officer in, India and South Asia. But before this, I've held leadership positions for a long time in financial services in a holiday company. And, I started my career, like I said, 28 years ago, and I've taken 2 breaks.
Yes.
One, when my son was born, 17 years ago, and another one more recently in 2016. I think what is important is that being intentional about your career, during the break, that matters. It's not that I'm taking a break, but, do I have plans to come back? And if I have plans to come back, then what do I need to do? So, do you have the focus for preparing yourself for that time when you're going to come out of your break? That just focus of your mind will ensure that you stay in touch with your network, you read, you do projects, you freelance, you teach, you enroll yourself for further education, whatever it is, that you can do depending on the time that you have, because you can decide that I only have 2 hours a day, because I'm focusing on children, or because I'm focusing on, family or mother's health, for example, that happened in my case. So during my first break, as an example, I just want to share that I did projects where I did not need to step out of home, because that was my condition with a little child. I slept when my little one slept, and I stayed awake when he was awake. Okay. But that was not the case during my second break. During my second break, I knew that I'd be easily able to work 4 to 6 hours a day, but I wanted completely flexible timing. I, in fact, traveled a lot during my second break for my assignments away from home, away for 4 days and 3 days, because my home situation allowed me to do that. So I think that's the bit that I want to mention, that be focused on your career, decide how much time you have, and then decide what you want to do in that time to stay connected. I get asked a lot, for example, saying, in something in a scenario like this, they saying, how do you land projects and assignments during your breaks, because I've
Yes.
done a lot of that. So that's the only tip I want to leave everybody with, that my experience has been that my ex-bosses, my co-workers, my industry peers, they are the ones who gave me, my assignment. So they are the ones who are most familiar with what I bring to the table. So that's the little, tip from, what you do during your sabbatical discussion that you and I are having just now.
Definitely. I love the part on having some thought about what it is you want to do after you've taken that break, because it will trigger some level of, do I want to learn about something? Do I want to stay connected to some type of periodical that's coming out that'll keep me current? So I love that. And I wish I had this conversation before my break, but lovely. And it's great insight to those that's also thinking of breaks. The next thing we want to just discuss with you a little, when we look at professional roles, many a times we can get emotionally attached to roles, getting frustrated with managers or peers that cannot see things the way we do. And this is a very interesting attachment to roles. Many a times it's people bringing their full emotion into a role, and it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But I know that I would love for you to given your enormous experience, tell us a little bit about how you look at this.
So I'm emotional. There is no two ways about it. Okay. I am emotional about everything, work, personal life, everything. But my learning is that most corporate executives, and I did that for the first 10 years of my working life. Okay. We seek appreciation, expression, growth, financial security, everything from this one workplace. And I think that's what leads to frustration. One workplace can't provide all these things continuously 24 by 7 every week, every month. And then what happens is, you go and read the literature, or you listen to YouTube, and there you listen to the gurus, and most of them will tell you that one should be able to express yourself at work, or worse still, that your passion should be your work, so that you're just completely satisfied and you will never think that you'll work another day. And this kind of literature, when I hear and read, it makes me rethink again. So that's what happens to you, when you're younger. And I just want to illustrate this with an example. I'm a very successful podcast host. You know that, Alima, right? I absolutely love doing the podcast, but that's not my career. The popular literature probably suggests that I should give up my job at IBM and go full fledged into a podcasting career because that's what I love. But I don't agree with that. I think that I can continue to keep my job and podcast on the weekends like I do. And in fact, a lot of what I do at work feeds into my podcast. So they feed into each other. I mean, the podcast also feeds into my job at IBM. But that's okay. That's not the important thing. What's important is that my successful podcast balances out my need for expression and creativity. The appreciation from the podcast on social media, everywhere, ensures that I'm not totally reliant on my job all the time for everything. I think that's the trick. That's how you build emotional stability for yourself. I mean, have different pillars for your emotional stability: your work, your family, and your side hustle, as I like to call it. My side hustle is podcasting.
Absolutely. Definitely, it's important. And, I think even right now, as I look, as my current situation is, I'm in the middle of a break. And indeed, that's what I've been doing quite a lot, as opposed to what I have felt before in roles where it's frustration. Now I can do my little projects and explore things. I mean, I did a little startup myself, and I got a chance to really put something into fruition on my own. So it was quite rewarding. I want to talk a little bit about, let's see here, advancements. So many of the women we know that have advanced in their careers, they've had to travel, they've had to manage kids, they've had to manage elderly parents while trying to ascend. In my case, I became a wife, a mother, and I was on an international assignment. I mean, I've been in Asia now for 12 years, traveling and working. And for me, I had to fly my mom from Canada when I had my first child. So it was quite difficult to manage. So definitely, to be a mom and a professional and a wife, or maybe not be a mom and just trying to be a female, I would just want to talk about what support should look like, from your experience.
And you did absolutely the right thing in flying your mom, by the way. I first want to acknowledge that. Okay. And then I want to say that my experience is that most women tend to think of building support systems only at home and not at work. And that's the paradigm shift, according to me. Okay. People hesitate to ask for help. I mean, not just women, even men hesitate to ask for help, but women should think about it. My advice is to not hesitate there. Okay. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. In my case, for example, to bring up my son, I've sought help from my parents. Both my parents moved in with me. My brother and my sister-in-law. There were days when I and my husband were traveling, and I asked my brother and sister-in-law to come over and stay the night with my parents and my son, And of course, I aided this with an overdose of paid stuff. Okay. It is important to build that kind of support system for a working mother. But having said that, I sought help at work too. Most of my managers and my team have always been privy to my home situation, whatever's happening at home. That offers a lot of emotional support at work. So the support system is not just physical, it's also emotional. I've always been extremely transparent with my bosses and my team about the work that I may have at home. during some crucial periods that you have at home. I mean, my dad went through 2 years of cancer, and those were tough times. So there have been immense amount of people, my co-workers and my team members, who've offered help and provided emotional support. So I just want to reiterate that don't have this fear of rejection or the fact that you'll appear weak, and all those concerns that crop up in our mind when we don't ask for help. So that's what I want to say.
And in terms of one, example that comes to your mind where it's just something short, that anecdotal that you've had to do that you look back on it and it makes you chuckle.
Well, it doesn't make me chuckle because I think the most difficult time to ask for help is when you're going through a difficult time yourself. But I'd still share it here because if there's learning in this, for anyone, then I think it's valuable to share, which is, when I lost my dad, that day, was probably one of the toughest days of my life. And I'm not from Bombay, so we don't have relatives here. It's my team members who came to support me. They were the ones who arranged everything for the funeral. I still remember my neighbor who I went up to, and I said, my 3-year-old son, I said, can you just keep him at your home? I said, don't bring him back to my home till I ask you, because I just need these couple of hours for him to be away from, let's say, the grim situation, that I had at home at that particular, moment, the chaos and everything. So I think that incident comes to my mind, and I say that, look, I did well in asking for that help. I did well in just blatantly going and saying, can you keep my son with you for half a day?
Yes.
So I think that's the example that comes to my mind. Yeah.
So yeah, actually, so for me, a colleague of mine I worked with, and he was he's still very close to me. And before I travel, I would make sure that he knows when I'm traveling, what day, when I'm coming back, so that if my helper needed someone to call in case of an emergency, he was on standby. So yes, he's a friend as well as a colleague that I developed that relationship with. So absolutely understand.
Absolutely.
I want to turn a little bit more now to another topic as we ascend in our careers, and this has to do with mentoring. So mentoring has been fundamental to a lot of successful people, women included, and mentoring can come in all shapes and forms. So many times, either being lucky enough to have a direct mentor. Many a times it could be through listening to lectures, reading materials and works of others, looking at their work, understanding their work, listening to interviews, and trying to extract learning from that. And I think this mentoring has become like a big topic now. And I would like to hear your thoughts on this, yourself, how you've experienced it, and any other advice you have around this.
So, I can go on for 10 minutes on this, but we are getting message on the chat saying we have the last minute. So I'm going to make it very quick. One is, I request everyone who listens to this to invest 15 minutes to read all about the difference between a coach, a mentor, and a sponsor. The three are different, so invest that time. The second thing is, I want all of you to remember what Marshall Goldsmith has said. He's written a book with this title, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Okay, so which means if you're successful, to become more successful, you've got to rethink. This means you need to change and you need to reinvent yourself. And for this, if you don't have a mentor, it is okay, but you definitely need a coach. So that's my point. The coach wakes you up to what your blind spots are and helps you become a better person ready for that next level of success. I mean, I have a coach that I work with since 2016, and therefore that's my strong recommendation, Alima. And with that, I think you want to sum up and say bye.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.